My name is Trinity. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so incredibly excited to have you. And if you're a returning listener, hi, welcome back. Before we dive into the main topic of today's episode, I want to share a little bit more about my own journey. As you know, my name is Trinity, and this fall I'll be attending Western Connecticut State University as a nursing major. But getting to this point was not easy for me. For a long time, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Back in my freshman year, I was completely hell-bent on keeping my circle of friends and constantly seeking their validation. I had just moved to Connecticut the year before. By the time freshman year rolled around, I was finally feeling comfortable. I liked the group of people I had around me, and they really inspired me to do better. The thing was, they all seemed to have some clue as to who they were and what they were passionate about. Meanwhile, I just felt like the odd kid out. Because I had no idea who I was or what I wanted to become, I just started pretending. Whenever my friends, teachers, or family, you name it, asked me about my future plans, I drew a total blank. I didn't like feeling like something was wrong with me for not having it all figured out. So I forced myself to be passionate about whatever random career popped into my head. I tried pushing myself into boxes that just didn't fit. And while it obviously didn't work out, it was a good experience. I juggled everything from culinary arts, dermatology, podiatry, film production. I even considered plumbing at one point. But at the beginning of my junior year, a flyer went out in my school's newsletter about a hands-on career and technical program. It offered 3 pathways: culinary arts, automotive, or health technology. At the time, I was already taking a culinary class in school and I enjoyed it, but I only liked it. I wasn't ready to spend an extra 5 hours a week in a kitchen, so I took a leap of faith and I chose health technology. And it did change a lot for me. For 2.5 hours every Tuesday and Wednesday, I showed up ready to go. I was taking notes, practicing my skills, making friends. And for the first time, I felt excited to learn, genuinely interested, actually interested. I like history, that's my favorite subject in school, but when it comes to learning about healthcare, it is just so eye-opening and heartening to learn about all of these different things. It is by far so captivating. But anyway, I always promised myself that I would never force myself into something that felt mentally or physically draining, and I'm so glad that this wasn't that. My peers and I were genuinely excited to be there, and looking back, I think that was one of the first times that I had actually felt a real passion, and I knew what to call it. So I like to say that experience definitely solidified my decision to pursue nursing. It was such a massive relief to finally know what I wanted to become, but then reality smacked me in the face. I realized just how many different branches of nursing there actually are. So, okay, I wanted to be a nurse, but what kind of nurse did I want to be? And honestly, that's the exact inspiration behind this podcast and my book too. While it does feel really nice and soothing to have a general pathway chosen, the truth is that there are always going to be more decisions that you're going to have to make down the road. There are hundreds of nursing specialties out there. Some of them are incredibly popular, while others are astoundingly niche. My purpose with this podcast is to explore those options with you, so you can see what's out there and decide what may or may not be a good fit for you in your own journey. To kick things off, I wanted to start with a bang and talk about labor and delivery. My very first interviewee is the lovely Chanel Smith, who also happens to be my mom. She has years of experience in L&D and obstetrics, and she has a lot of wisdom to share. So let's hear what she has to say.
I'm Chanel. I am currently an OB float nurse working in New York City. I have a master's degree in healthcare systems leadership and management. I have a master's degree in nurse midwifery. I'm an internationally board certified lactation consultant. I'm board certified in maternal newborn nursing and also in inpatient obstetrics. When I was a teenager, I had a lot of GI issues and I was admitted to the hospital when I was a teenager. And I would watch this show on TV called A Baby Story. And in that show, I connected to the severe abdominal pain that those women were experiencing in labor. Except in the end, they had a beautiful outcome, but I just had to suffer through my abdominal pain. So that's what interested me in the world of OB. Well, I became a nurse to become a midwife. not knowing that you didn't have to go that route in order to become a midwife. And when I was in nursing school, nursing, you had a lot of time with your patients because oftentimes your preceptor or your clinical instructor would place you with one nurse and then she would assign you with a patient. So it'd be 2 nurses and 1 patient. So you have all the time in the world to do everything that you want to do for that patient. But in reality, it's one nurse having to divide up many patients. When I was a med-surg nurse, I had 7 or 8 patients on night shift that I was responsible for assessing, charting on, taking care of, medicating, changing, etc. And the charting is a significant amount of time. So it's very different than what reality looks like. And now as a labor and delivery nurse, I do have 1 patient, just like I did when I was in nursing school for the most part, except that 1 patient I'm responsible completely for charting on, typically every 15 minutes and going in their room at minimum once an hour, usually much more than that. So there's much more than what one is exposed to in nursing school. Because what you will come to realize in nursing is that you are a nurse and you're also housekeeping, and you are also the aide, and you are also the volunteer and the therapist and the social worker and all the other things as well. My first nursing job ever, I was a psych nurse on a crisis stabilization unit, and overnight it was 1 RN and about 20 to 30 patients, mostly men. And once I was off of orientation, I was the only nurse on the floor with 2 psych techs and me, and I was in charge of every patient on the floor as well as the psych techs. So I had to learn how to be a charge nurse and how to be a leader and how to be assertive as a new grad nurse. I felt like every shift I went to, I was handing over my nursing license that I had worked so hard for and praying I would get it back at the end of the shift, because I felt like a big imposter. How am I responsible for all of this? And I'm a new grad baby nurse. But I developed those skills and I learned. And within 6 months, I felt like I had my land legs. So really after a year, because 6 months of orientation and then 6 months on my own. And at least once a week, I had a psychiatric emergency where I had to press the code bell, lock down the unit, have extra hands come to then medicate somebody who was really going off. And this was my first inpatient nursing job. It was very stressful, but I had a good team of people supporting me. My psych techs were great. They wanted me to succeed. Maintaining relationships is really, really, really important, especially in women's health. Women's health is so small that you definitely want to make sure that you honor those relationships. Labor and delivery is the ED of women's health. And because of that, I think a lot of nurses working in labor and delivery it may look like they're not being super compassionate when we are. It's just that we see women in pain often. So we're not going to be like necessarily rushing immediately, because we can read women's bodies and body language really well. So while for the spouse and that patient, especially if this is their first time, they may think that something has to be done immediately. That's not always the case. Labor and delivery, it can be hardcore. So things can go 0 to 100 real quick, but it can be lots of soft cuddliness too. You see a lot of beautiful things. I think that nursing is a phenomenal profession, but do not come into this thinking that it's going to be light work. Do it with your heart. Don't come into it thinking that you're going to be rich. Even if that's true, if you're going to go into nursing and climb the ladder and become like a high level administration, you don't want to be rich and miserable.
Give it up for my mom, you guys. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. I loved hearing her speak about her experiences and everything that has led her to where she is today. Honestly, there were things in there that I didn't know about her. I was enlightened, which just proves why it is so important to actually talk to people about their experiences. I took so much from that conversation, but one of the most notable phrases that she said to me during the interview was that labor and delivery is hard work, but it is also heart work. You need to empathize, you have to be compassionate, and you have to be ready to step up as a therapist, a social worker, and so much more. I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to be on the absolute forefront of women's health. I can imagine it to be incredibly challenging, but simultaneously uplifting and motivating. I think it's also a great reminder that everyone is going to hit an obstacle in their path. If you're studying to become a nurse or if you're already out there in the field, no matter, expect that challenge to hit you in the face. My mom talked about how frightening it can be for a new grad baby nurse, as she called it, to step onto a floor for the first time, face an overwhelming number of patients, and be expected to be the leader who has all the answers. But as she said, you will get your land legs. You'll find yourself, figure out what kind of nurse you want to be, and get comfortable. Hearing from professionals who have actually done it and are still standing proudly at the front lines of healthcare is simply inspiring. Wait, Who's calling my phone right now? Oh, it's Sam and Alexis. Let me answer this real quick and see what they have to say about their own experience in the field.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Alexis. So this is Alexis, and I think I always knew that I wanted to do something in medicine, and I always thought I wanted to be a surgeon. And then when I was in high school, I went and shadowed a nurse actually at St. Francis Hospital in maternity. Then I discovered that I wanted to work with babies after that, and I loved what nurses did. So I changed my passion, and that's why I went to nursing school, and here I am.
So this is Sam. I decided to go into nursing when I was probably a junior in high school, and my brother actually got diagnosed with cancer. We were at the hospital like every day with him. I originally wanted to go into pediatric oncology because just as like the relationship the nurses had with the patients, and I wanted to kind of like give back the way the nurses did for my brother. But my pathway also changed. I'm in labor and delivery as well. And yeah.
So here it's a labor and delivery and a postpartum unit. So unlike other facilities where they're separated, the units are separated, we have both postpartum patients after they deliver and we have labor patients. And sometimes we're caring for them from either they're contracting and they're ready to have a baby on the way here, or they need to be induced. So we start from the beginning and we end up being there for their whole process.
We do triages. We triage patients. So sometimes they come in, even if they're not in labor, we have to just monitor them. We have to make sure baby's okay. And we have to monitor the fetal strips. If a patient's in labor, we do go into the OR. We scrub in if there's a C-section. So there's a lot of different roles in this job.
Oh my goodness. I would have never known. I would have no clue. That sounds, ooh.
I feel
Wow.
like I felt the same way.
It's great, but
I didn't realize how much there was to it too. I was like, oh, we just get to catch the babies.
Yeah.
I actually was so nervous coming out of nursing school that I just automatically decided I'm just going to take whatever job I can get. And I ended up going to an adult transplant / like med surge floor. And I kind of knew when I was there for like not even a long time, it was probably there for 6 months, that I knew it wasn't going to be for me forever. And then I had always had a passion for babies. So then I ended up going to Connecticut Children's NICU, and then I missed adults. So then I ended up coming here because I was kind of missing the adult part of it. So now it incorporates both babies and moms. So that's why I'm here now. I tried other things and I didn't like it. I feel like this is going to be where I retire.
And then for me, I started off in med surge. I kind of feel like I went there because in nursing school, they kind of tell you that you need to start in med surge, but I'm kind of glad that I did. I got a lot of experience. I didn't have any nursing experience at all before, or any healthcare. So it was kind of nice to learn how to be a nurse on a medicine floor. I also did ICU step down. I always knew I wanted to do labor and delivery. Started off with my clinical. I got to see a vaginal and a C-section on the day that I got to go to OB, and I loved it. So I was like, that's what I want to do. And I got there.
I feel like I've seen a lot on TikTok that people think that labor and delivery nursing is like it's soft nursing.
Yeah,
it
you
is
think
not.
we sit down all night.
It is not.
Or all day.
I mean, there's shifts where it is like a little bit nicer, like a night like tonight, where right now we're able to like have a conversation with you, which is awesome. But sometimes we're running around sweating all night, watching a strip that's really concerning, running to the operating room right away. Somebody's delivering their car outside and we need to meet them down there. So I feel like it varies. But I feel like that goes for any job in nursing. You're going to have good days and bad days. But here I do feel like it's a major misconception about labor and delivery. People might think that it's easy. And it's like, oh, you just get to deliver babies. But
cuddle babies.
There's a lot that goes into it.
It's not that. Yeah. There's, people think, oh, you're on the good part of nursing. But unfortunately, we see a lot of rough things here too.
Yeah. Keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Because what you think you might want to do forever is it might not be what you want to do forever. So I feel like keeping an open mind and knowing that there's so many different things that you can do in nursing, like you're not tied down to one job. Like if you take a job graduating college and you end up not being super happy in it and you're like, oh, I'm regretting like all my decisions, don't even think that way, because there's so many different things you could do. And then you end up finding some of your best friends, because Sam and I actually went to high school together and we didn't talk all through college and stuff, and then we reconnected when we were here.
And I feel like just for the school aspect of it, it's hard, but as long as you take the time to study, you should be successful.
Thank you, Sam and Alexis. Wow, guys, I'm speechless. But not for too long, though, because I actually have to talk for this podcast. So let's get into what I think. Listening to Sam and Alexis's interviews really put into perspective for me how vital it is to actually understand exactly what you're putting yourself into when you enter this field. During my interview, Sam and Alexis spoke on the different roles that you'd have to adapt as a nurse. Just like my previous interview, you're not just a nurse, you're not solely a nurse, you also have to be a therapist, and for labor and delivery specifically, you need to be a lactation consultant, and you have to be emotionally aware, etc., etc. There are so many aspects of this singular specialty, and you need to be ready to adapt and embody multiple professions all at once for your patients and for your peers. Labor and delivery, as both of my interviewees spoke on, is very beautiful. You are bringing life into the world, and I can't even begin to fathom how emotional it would be to witness that happening. But I do think it's important to talk about the bad days in L&D. You have to be ready to face instances of fetal loss, the loss of a mother, and families going through what could potentially be some of the worst days of their life. So it's important for you to hold space for grief just as much as you hold space for joy. I can't even imagine the amount of mental and emotional strength that takes to work on a floor where one room may be celebrating and the next room could be in mourning. But what happens when a baby is born needing immediate medical intervention? Well, that brings us to the next piece of this podcast. Joining us next is Coley, a neonatal nurse practitioner in the NICU. Let's talk a little about what happens on the other side of those doors.
My name is Coley Ferretti, and I'm a neonatal nurse practitioner. I think it's really hard when you are approaching a college trying to figure out what you are going to do for the rest of your life. And some people have it figured out and some people don't. I was not one of them. So I originally went to University of New Haven, and I was going to study forensic science, and then realized that was not for me. So I wanted to stay there, but ultimately had to pick a different path. And so I chose nutrition and dietetics. So I actually graduated with my undergraduate degree in nutrition and dietetics, and worked as a dietitian for probably 10 years, and then decided I wanted something a little bit more. And so I went back to nursing school, and then ultimately nurse practitioner schools. The population I worked with for a long time was genetic patients, so inborn errors of metabolism. And so that's kind of why I wanted to go into pediatrics and specifically neonatal ICU. In my most common day-to-day, when I do my 24-hour shifts, that is a combined NICU and nursery role. So we have a level 3 NICU at that particular hospital. There is a nursery. And so most of the patients that I see there are well babies, just born. You do their initial assessments. You make sure that there's no acute concerns on the physical exam. And then you would follow them for the duration of their hospital stay. Anything younger or really, really sick or acute would go to a higher level NICU. So that would be the second job that I work, which is at a level 4 NICU. So that is more, your 22 plus weeks gestational age, very, very acute, critically ill babies who are on vents, nutritionally supported, and you're pretty much taking care of them until they would otherwise have been at their due date, which is 40 weeks and then some. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm very much an adrenaline junkie. And so I think working in an ICU is where my brain operates best. But I wouldn't say that it doesn't come with challenges. And I say that not lightly, but, parents are going through sometimes the hardest times of their lives if they have a baby who's born prematurely and is in a NICU. And so I think in the beginning stages, they are okay. But as the admission kind of continues, it definitely becomes challenging where they have, what we call ICU-itis, where they get very antsy still being in the hospital. And as you can imagine, if a baby is born prematurely, we're not seeing a lot of day-to-day changes. And so what we're trying to do is basically grow this baby that was supposed to still be in utero that is now not in utero. So it gets really difficult, I think, for families to sort of see that progress. And so there is a lot of emotional support that goes into a lot of what we do. So I do think we wear a lot of different hats in terms of, social work and therapy and things like that. And obviously we have our challenging days when outcomes happen that we don't want or are not desired. But at the end of the day, I still think it's a very rewarding job and role, even as a NICU nurse. I mean, they're the ones at the bedside with these babies every single day, like watching all of the little developmental milestones.
Thank you so much, Coley. So first of all, I want to start off by talking a little bit about her educational pathway. I think it is incredibly realistic to not know exactly what you want to do and to change your path, and that is the beauty of healthcare. There are always going to be options, and you can see that in Coley's life too. She spoke a bit about her background in nutrition and dietetics before going to nursing school, and I think it is so amazing the amount that you can do within your life. I love that she acknowledges not knowing and how it's entirely okay to not know everything when you're starting out. Recognizing that learning is a constant process is important for your own growth. She also brought light to the difficulties that parents face, and I think that is one of the most overlooked parts about the ICU in general. The NICU can be an incredibly challenging and slow road, especially for parents. I think Coley's path from dietetics to a neonatal nurse practitioner just shows how advanced nursing can become, but I also think it highlights how healthcare education pathways can vary depending on your personal goals. There is no single right way to enter this field or make an impact. You just have to find what best suits you. This brings us to our final guest of the podcast. Joining us next is Shally, an LPN who is going to share her own unique insights.
My name is Shally Panyagua, and I am an LPN. My mother wanted to be a nurse growing up, and she never was able to. So I guess I was just trying to realize her dreams, and in effect, I found something that I love doing. I think something that people really think about when they think about nursing is like, oh, it's like this easy job that people respect, and nobody mistreats them or anything like that. You go into the nursing field and you have like this beautiful view of the world, and like as a new nurse. But as the years progress, you kind of like develop this shell. It's not easy, and I mean it's respected, but at the same time, you're seeing people who are sick and they're at their lowest. So people that are at their lowest aren't very nice all the time. So I think that's something that is very misconstrued. Listen, something huge, right, is that if you go into nursing, it needs to be because this is what you want to do. We had a nurse like a few years ago, and she told us that the reason she went into the L&D world, like labor and delivery world, was because on TikTok, those look like the nurses that had the most fun. That can't be the reason why you're coming into a nursing field, You have to have the heart, like you have to want to do this. This is what you have to want to do. So it's not something like this is what's trendy, this is what's cool. Like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to make a difference. I think a big transition is just shutting up and listening, because you learn all this stuff in school and it's like, oh yeah, I remember learning that, and like you're so excited and like you just want to kind of like tell people everything that you know. But sometimes you have to stop and listen, because these nurses that have all this experience all these years, they want to show you these things. So yeah, you might know things textbook, but once you're in the hospital, it's different. Now you're learning for real. When you get like a brand new nurse, like they want to share all that stuff, and sometimes it comes across as like, oh my gosh, this person's like a know-it-all, and like I don't mean to say it like that, but like the nurses kind of like, all right, well, I want to show them things, but they're not letting me teach them anything, because all they're doing is like, oh well, I thought it was done this way, which is a big thing also when people come from hospital to hospital. It's interesting. So something really big in nursing is like, yeah, you have the people that you cannot wait to work with, and you're like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this 12-hour shift without them. You have to understand that things change and people move, and the nursing world can be very varied. You can do anything as an RN. You will have your group, you will have like that group, but you also have to be able to do your job without having that group of people. I've been at this hospital now for 12 years, so I have seen my fair share of people that I love, and they go and they move and they go to other hospitals, other states. It can be hard to come back to work without having those people there. And restarting from new is scary. I think one of my biggest advices will be get your RN. Go straight, get your RN. I'm an LPN. I did mine through the Army, so mine was a 1-year program. There have been LPNs that will go to nursing school while they're getting paid to do their LPN job, and the job that they're working at will pay for it. So that's really awesome. But if you have the opportunity to get your RN, go straight, suck it up and just do it.
So, as we wrap up the podcast today, I'm sitting here thinking about all the conversations I've had, hearing from my mom, Sam and Alexis, Coley, and Shelly. It is so interesting and especially crazy to see how all of their experiences tie together. Even though they work in somewhat different environments, they all face some of the exact same common thread. One of the biggest things that I've noticed across all of my interviews was the idea of the different hats that nurses have to wear every day, to quote Coley. Of course, you're being paid to show up for this job as a nurse, but besides the actual medical care, the next minute you may need to be at housekeeping or the social worker or the therapist or the person that's holding things down for a family. It's essential that you embody those multiple professions all at once for the well-being of your patients and your peers. You're not just there to be a nurse, and I think that empathizing and becoming emotionally resilient is a part of the job, and it's also not something that a textbook can truly prepare you for. Oftentimes in the media, nursing is made to look incredible from the outside and an aesthetically pleasing career, but they fail to recognize the efforts that it takes to show up every day. Social media can inspire people to become nurses for the wrong reasons, and to go back to what Shelly said, you need to want to do this. You don't want to end up hopping on this quote-unquote trend and not liking it. I also don't think you should go into nursing under the assumption that you're going to make bank, because first of all, that may not be the reality depending on your location, and second of all, if you're coming in with the wrong reasons, it will reflect in your quality of care, and that's just not something you want. People who are sick and scared or not going to be nice to you most of the time, and it takes a lot of emotional strength to meet them with compassion when they may be combative or aggressive or yelling at you. I think that my mom said it best. Nursing is hard work, but it's also heart work. So to anyone listening who wants to go into nursing, expect the obstacles to be there. Expect to trip and fall. It's terrifying to be a new grad nurse who's stepping onto a floor for the first time, but it's okay to not know. Just remember to listen to your peers, find your land legs, and figure out who you want to become as a nurse. I just want to let you know there's no single right way to enter this field, so please do whatever best suits you and find whichever pathway is going to lead you to the right destination. I hope you all have enjoyed listening. Thank you so much. Bye.